The most important person in the whole wide world is you, and you hardly even know you. The most important person in the whole wide world is you. Come on, we'll show you. Let's find out more about the things you feel and do, 'cause you're the most important person in the world to you.
Hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Happy Turkey Day Eve. Welcome to One4ALLisLove, presenting Know Thyself, or What Do You Fear, with Sonya Spirit. And I'm Sonya Spirit. So welcome. Welcome, individuated soul. Okay, so today we are going to discuss fear. Of course, fear is a feeling induced by perceived danger or threat that occurs in certain types of organisms. Well, we're going to focus on man, which causes a change in metabolic and organ functions and ultimately a change in behavior, such as fleeing, hiding, or freezing from perceived traumatic events. Okay. Excuse me. All right, so fear. Many of us, actually all of us, 99.9% of us, have fears, whether we are cognizant of them or not. And I can make this statement blanketly because there is evidence of it all around us. Now, of course, there are various kinds of fears, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But the problem with fear is the chemical impact. Well, there are several issues that's wrong with fear, but one is the chemical impact, which of course affects the body, the psychological impact, which affects our manifestation, and the list goes on. So let's begin with what are you afraid of? Do you even know? So getting back to the different types of fears, as I mentioned before, there is social fears, which most of us are aware of. And we probably know someone if we are not afflicted by ourselves. And social fears can be anything. Fear of crowds, fear of public speaking. The biggest one is what other people think. Yes, what other people think. And we will delve into that a little bit more. Fear of loss, of any kind of loss, losing your job, a death in the family, a loss of any kind, something being taken away. Okay, so a fear of loss. Fear of change. Many of us would like for things to stay the same. Now, not all of us. As I've mentioned many times before, I'm a Gemini and I welcome change. I welcome variety. But many people do not like change. And I'm not saying that I welcome all change, but I do love a variety. But yes, people have patterns, routines, rituals. And rituals, routines, there's the same thing, so I use those interchangeably. And people do not want to make any changes from it. This is working. It's not broken. Why fix it? And then we have like a more of a physical, sometimes it can be psychological fear, but harm or danger. You know, some people are afraid of the dark. Children are often afraid of the dark. Perceived, most of it is perceived, but we'll get away from that. Fear of the unknown, uncertainty, or ignorance. Now, my favorite one with unknown, uncertainty, and ignorance, racism is a great one. You know, just based on the way someone looks, there's a fear there. You know, now the fear can express itself in the form of hatred, but hatred is just another form of insecurity, believe it or not. And even if it's founded on something, which we will also discuss, it's still unfounded. Okay, the founding or is really just a justification, one's justification for the existence of hatred. Then we have like fear of objects, snakes, water, swimming, heights, flying, things like that. Fear of circumstances or conditions, closed spaces, like I said, height. Yeah, because I guess height wouldn't be an object. But yeah, fear of objects, circumstances, or conditions. And the preceding examples were some. Fear of incompetence, fear of failure, fear of success, believe it or not. There are people who won't try because they're afraid to fail. There's other people who won't try because they're afraid they'll succeed, and they'll have to keep on doing it. And isn't it just so much better to complain why you can't do something versus actually doing it? Okay, so there is a myriad of reasons for why folks fear. Are these fears justified? Often the answer is absolutely not. Okay. Now, before we start getting into some of the individual fears, if you're a person who says, oh, I don't have any fears, I'm not really concerned, or no major fears, only if there is an imminent threat, which is understandable, because all of us have that sixth sense when we are in danger, fight or flight. We're not talking about that sixth sense fear. We're talking about fears that are unfounded, unsubstantiated, but they do have roots. Now, one example that I often use when I discuss fear, especially to someone who claims they don't really have any fears, I said, well, do you lock your doors? Of course. Well, why do you lock your doors? To protect myself, to stay safe. Okay. Safe from what? Protect yourself from what? Okay, others out there. Someone who may want to do me harm. Some crazy person. Some maniac who, for whatever reason, I just unfortunately crosses his or her path. Yeah. I'm here to say that there's no such thing. What do I mean by that? Okay, you lock your doors. Hey, I lock my doors, so I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. However, I have been experimenting, which I've mentioned in a couple of episodes, so I won't belabor that. But, so I'm trying to, we'll talk about how to get over it. Okay, so we lock our doors. Why do we lock our doors? And this is really where the conversation started in my mind. Why do we lock our doors? Why do I lock my door? What am I afraid of? So I'm just going to speak in the first person because it'll be easier that way. What am I afraid of? And think about it. I've mentioned why most people lock their doors, But the thing is, as you grow to know God, these fears will no longer exist. The reason I say that is because, okay, understanding God, understanding universal laws, which is what this broadcast is, is all about. And we talked about the universal laws. We talked about universal law number 6, cause and effect, and underneath cause and effect, or a subset of, or a sub-law under cause and effect is karma. And, of course, karma is that boomerang effect. They even talk about it in the Bible. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Because, this is what they didn't go on to say, because whatever you do to someone else is coming back to you. period. Until your consciousness elevates, until you spiritually elevate. Okay? And if we're still identifying with mankind being physical, man being the soul, the individuated spirit, if we're still identifying ourselves as mankind, as this physical being, then we don't really know God that well. And the relationship is evolving. However, all of this that I'm discussing can easily be overcome. So let's not be fearful of the conversation either, or the topic. Okay. So we're afraid of being attacked, or we're afraid of some adversity, someone breaking into the house, robbing us, killing us maybe, raping, murdering the children, blah, 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 on and on and on. Listen, if this is your karma, a locked door is not going to stop them. Now, and it's not. How many home invasions do we hear about? And if you watch the news, you just see them nightly. I don't watch the news. But how many home invasions do you hear about? All the time. So a locked door is not preventing anything. Okay? And I had mentioned an episode of a documentary, Michael Moore's, I want to say Roger and Me, when he went over to Canada walking into folks' house because they leave their doors unlocked. Because clearly they must not be concerned about the crazy person. Now, my stepson was telling me that he had saw a documentary not too long ago about why people began locking their doors. Now, I haven't been able to find it, but I haven't had the time to do the diligent work that I needed to. But basically what he was telling me was that, it started, or it stemmed from, it became habitual during the 60s and serial killers. So who knows, maybe the lock industry said, hey, we can peddle a whole lot more locks along with the alarm system company, if we, and that's been known to happen, if we peddle fear, because that works. I mean, just like 9/11, all that other stuff, they peddle different products based on whatever the condition is or the circumstance is. Oh, school shootings, gun sales go out the roof. Wow, let's add some more to the problem. But it's all based out of fear. It's all based out of fear. So people go out and buy guns. There's a school shooting, and people go out and buy even more guns. Well, because they're afraid that they're going to take away their right to bear arms. I don't even want to touch the Constitution, but let's just look at it from a spiritual, not even psychological, from a spiritual perspective. Getting back to knowing God, getting back to universal laws, getting back to karma, cause and effect. And I'm working through this myself. What I'm afraid of, basically, is the unknown. Ignorance of my own past. Because as a physical being, mankind, we're subject to time and space. And time, of course, there's a lag, okay? So if we do something, there's a boomerang effect, good, bad, or indifferent. Now, good and indifferent we don't really pay attention to. Good we celebrate. And we don't even look for, hey, what did I do to deserve this? We just enjoy the moment and roll with it. Indifferent, it just probably goes undetected. Adversity, oh, why is this happening to me? No, most of us don't say, what did I do to deserve this? Although that is the more appropriate question. Why is this happening to me? Or even worse, I can't believe that this person did this, that, and the third. Really, let me tell you something. It does not matter who the person is. It doesn't matter what color they are, whether they're male or female, whether they are highly intelligent or by our standards, mentally slow. It doesn't matter who the person is. Whatever adversity that you're experiencing, that is your experience. That is your experience. It's not an unfortunate or unlucky event or coincidence or happenstance or accident. There is no such thing. Okay. Now, if there is no such thing, then where does the fear come from? Well, some of the fear is programmed. It's conditioned. Okay, from our environment. We absorb these energies from our environment. From birth, when we have the clean slate conscious, however, we still have the soul with all its previous programming. And so we have pre-programmed fear from previous lifetimes, which hopefully we are all working through. And then we have learned behavior since we have incarnated in this body. Okay, so we could have learned it from our parents or guardians, teachers, siblings, family, neighborhood, community, the news, just overall the way people treat each other. Okay, but we are absorbing all of this in. Okay, and there's a lot of fear energy on purpose, by design, it's planned. Okay, but we're not. This show is not about conspiracies or anything like that. So we're not going to concern ourselves. What we want to concern ourselves with is overcoming these objectives. We want to overcome these shortcomings. We want to move into being full spiritual beings. Okay. So, lost my train of thought, forgive me. It happens a lot. That's because I think faster than I speak. But where I'm going with this is these fears that we have are our own. They are our own baggage. Our own baggage. Okay, and yet we project them on other people, other things, other situations. So, okay, let's start with something simple, maybe like a snake, okay? If you have a fear of snakes and you have no idea where this is coming from, like you haven't been bitten by a snake or anything like that, chances are, and this is why most people love past life regression, because it gives them an opportunity to understand a lot of their issues or conditions that they're not really cognizant of, but they know that they possess. So you may learn through past life regression, you may learn that, I don't know, you were a snake handler, who knows, or you were bitten by a snake, or you had a pet snake that attacked someone. Who knows, that part isn't important. The important part is to understand that for those of you who follow the series, when we discussed Sphere, the movie Sphere, at the end, they chose to forget. And when, as individuated souls, when we come into each bodily incarnation, we have chosen to forget our previous lifetime. However, we don't come here as clean slates like the innocent babies that we profess that they are. We come here with souls already programmed into those little bitty bodies. But we have forgotten those previous experiences. Now, just because we forgot those previous experiences don't mean that they went away. We're still held accountable unless we have grown. I don't want to call it escaping karma, but you can outgrow your karma. When you learn, when you grow, when you share, when you expand, when your energy transform and elevate, then you can be unburdened by previous karmic debt. But that still requires a lot of effort from you, because you have to be making changes. You have to outgrow your conditioning. First of all, you have to even acknowledge that you're conditioned. Getting back to the locked doors, you are conditioned. I am conditioned. We are conditioned by fear to lock our doors. Think about that. Now, am I advocating for people to leave their doors unlocked? No, because I know how psychology works. Oh, it's my fault something happened to you. No. Just like hurricanes. Have you ever seen how hurricanes work? I mean, not hurricanes, tornadoes. You ever seen how tornadoes work? They'll skip a house and completely demolish the house next to it. And the neighbor is still standing. His or her house is still standing. Listen, you think that's a coincidence or a happenstance or an accident? No. You just don't know the karma of the residents and the house that got demolished. Remember, I think it was last week, when we were talking about the children's stories, there was a Chinese proverb that said, maybe so, maybe not, we'll see. And basically what it was saying is, don't be so quick to judge a situation that you don't understand, just based off of what you see and your limited knowledge of information. First of all, let's just stop judging, period, okay? Because that's part of our fear-based system. We judge people based on their appearance. They frighten us. Why are you frightened? What are you afraid of? Who have you harmed in the past? When I first had a discussion with someone, well, I don't want to say when I first had a discussion. I've had a discussion with someone, of course, it's a while ago, and she was saying that, listen, God, well, we were having a discussion. You know, I said God doesn't punish. And she was like, it's even better than that. When something adverse happens to someone, that's the universe's way of exposing them. And of course, that was interesting. And you meditate on it. Like I said, don't ever take my word. Don't take anybody's word. Anything that you doubt or don't feel comfortable with, you take that to the God inside. It will get addressed. It will get answered. Your questions will be answered. Now, if you ask a question, you have to be open and receptive to receive the answer. You have to be open and aware. Don't ask a question and then expect it to be delivered a certain kind of way because that's the way you want it to be delivered. That's not how it works. That's not how God works. There's messaging. You can get messaging anywhere. Okay, let's get back on track. Back to the fear. So there is programming, a lot of programming. And there's also karmic debt. And then there's one more component, the thoughts that we entertain. You know, we talked about watching the news and how it is polluted or riddled with fear-based stories. Somebody's gotten robbed. Everybody's getting murdered. There are scams, financial scams, especially now it's the holidays. I mean, it's, you know, oh, we're just trying to make you aware. No, you're not. You are amplifying fear. You are maintaining a fearful level or you're elevating it. 9/11, another fearful event. And I'm not going to get into the whole it was by design thing. Like I said, I'm going to leave the conspiracies alone. But what I'm telling you is that our own thoughts also, it continues to perpetuate the fear. Like I said, locking your doors, judging people by the way they look, fear of loss, fear of change. I mean, loss is going to take place. That's a natural occurrence. The only thing that is, was, and ever will be is God. God is infinite. Energy is infinite. And God is an intelligent energy. Okay? An infinite, intelligent energy. That is God. Everything else is going to change, is going to die, and is going to be recycled because that's energy. So even as individuated spirits, this body is a temporary vehicle to hang out on earth, have human experiences, interpret the physical world, take these individual experiences and develop spiritually so that we can move on to the next level. Okay, so there's this concept that I used to entertain. Well, I still do. But I'm careful who I say it around, but what the heck. So I used to tell people, not people, when I have one-on-one conversations, and it depends on the person that I'm speaking to. I said, well, I feel like if you truly knew God, you wouldn't own a gun, you wouldn't lock your doors. Now, as you grow to know God, you might be able to transition. Well, you should be able to transition. It's not a might to it. If you are growing to know God, eventually these things will fall away. Your fears will fall away. So I talked to a friend. He was like, oh, well, you live out in the sticks, so it's easy for you to leave your door unlocked. I was like, no, first of all, just because I don't live in the city. I was like, I live in a townhouse community. I'm sure if I allow my mind to get the best of me, I can see some crazy lunatic going around twisting knobs to see which door is unlocked, But I'm not going to entertain that thought because that's a fear-based thought. Now, as a spiritual being who understands how cause and effect and karma work, like I said, my biggest fear is, have I done something in the past to harm someone to warrant me being attacked, to warrant my townhouse being broken into, to warrant me being harmed or killed or raped or whatever thoughts that comes to any individual's mind as to what could possibly happen to them. Now, of course, I don't have small children in the house, so that's not an issue for me. But there was a time when I had small children, and believe me, I was like any other mother, bird, hippo, elephant, whatever you want to call it. Listen, you don't play when it comes to the mamas. But what I'm saying to you, that was still based on fear and ignorance, because then, of course, I really identified with mankind, with being a physical, because that's all I knew. I mean, I knew that there was a God, but I didn't know that God was in me, and I didn't know that I was an individuated spirit, and I didn't know how much power I had. So I thought I was limited and finite to this physical substance that everyone calls Sonya. Okay. And I like the name Sonya. Okay, so getting back to the fear. Our fear is within. There are, for the lack of a better word for now, there is fear and there is love. Love is God. Love is not our man-made definition of love, okay? Love is a vibration. Love is an energy, and it is a vibration of the highest order. That's why, and the closest thing that we've ever felt to that vibration of love is actually being in love. Because if you can recall, when you have fallen in love or fell in love or being in love, it's consuming. It really is. It's interesting, but it is a very consuming feeling. But it's also, it's so pleasing. So you can't really get enough of it. You certainly can't control it. And most of us end up destroying it because we can't control it, we don't understand it, and eventually we become afraid of it. So many of us end up destroying this in-love feeling with whoever the person is that we're in love with what? Thoughts of fear. This person can't be perfect. This is not going to last forever. Well, when you start entertaining those thoughts, guess what you're also doing? You're putting that energy out there. Hey, manifest the fact that this can't be perfect. Please, man, and that's exactly what you're saying. You just don't know it. These thoughts become manifestations. And these thoughts we need to change. Or otherwise, guess what? You will keep manifesting the life that you don't want. Okay? You will keep manifesting the life that you don't want. And look around. That's all. What is it in your life that you want to change? Write that down. Now, me, I'm just working with the locked doors thing because I know that it's all about, me being ignorant of my past. Have I hurt anyone in the past? And the time. It's the time element, okay? Because if I've hurt someone in a previous lifetime, well, I'm ignorant of it in this lifetime. When I will become cognizant of it is when something happens to me. Now, I can certainly say I have not lived anything close to a perfect life in this lifetime. However, I have been growing. And I have changed my life and perception on what life is really all about. And even the perception of who and what I am. So my experiment, my personal experiment, is the whole locked doors thing because I don't own a gun. And I intentionally don't own a gun because when I was younger, I felt like, hey, if I own a gun, I might use it because I had a hot temper. And the first thing I thought of is I can't imagine going to jail over somebody else. To me, my life was more important than hurting someone else's. Me being free, me being, okay, you get it. So, okay, but these are the things. So let's work on our fears. Where does your fear come from? And be honest with yourself. Okay. Something else that we need to start practicing is the whole judgment thing. There's a lot of fear that comes from insecurity. Bullying is a sign of insecurity. Pride is a sign of insecurity. Anything where there is an announcement or overcompensation generally stems from an insecurity. People, how does pride? Because you're announcing who you are. So you want everyone to know, hey, I think we've had, this has been discussed in a previous episode too, because it talked about the little bumper stickers. That was my example. My child is on the honor roll. Why is that necessary? Okay, some people are like, no, it's not necessary. However, but if you think about it from a psychological perspective, it is a form of insecurity. You want to put people on notice that you are worthy. Like I said, your children are worthy. You have the genetic makeup. Okay, the genetic makeup to be productive citizens. So we brag about our kids, we brag about our accomplishments, or we boast about them, or, things like that. And all of that is, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. some of the most successful people are insecure. Now, am I saying all successful people? No. But what I'm saying is it doesn't matter what your station is in life. There are insecure people across the spectrum. And they may or may not be cognizant of it. Now, if you are cognizant of it, then you should work on it. If you're not, then eventually there should be signs. Because remember, God is always drawing us closer to him, okay? And so there are always messages, there are always signs, there are always experiences that lead you to become more spiritual and understand your spiritual self and to grow spiritually. But if you don't have that filter going, you can't see. You can't see what else. And we all have, well, I don't want to say we all have, but there are filters. Filters are, we can call them perceptions. We can call them perceptions. So we have to take the filters off. We need to learn how to respond and not react. And I'm certainly guilty of this. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. And I am making some great improvements. However, I still have work to do. So, getting back to addressing the fears. Our biggest fear is the ignorance of our karma. And even that, locked doors and handguns are not going to save you. That's where I'm going with this. Especially with the guns. The guns will end up doing more harm than good. You might even create more bad karma for yourself. Because you hear about how many, I'm doing the air quotes, accidents you hear about with handguns. People getting accidentally killed or shot, or people getting shot by their own gun. That's why I say listen, whatever karma you have coming to you that hasn't been repaid or dissipated because you've elevated, a locked door and or a gun you're not going to escape it through that. That is a mankind mentality. Now you can say, oh, it makes me feel secure. Well, it only makes you feel secure if you identify as mankind. Because if you identify as a spirit, it doesn't matter. A locked door is not going to prevent anything. A loaded handgun in your nightstand is not going to prevent anything. If it is your experience in order to reconcile or restore your harmony, then it will occur. Now, will you pay for every, wrongdoing? No, you will not pay for every wrongdoing. Hopefully you are growing. Now, if you're not growing, then listen, you might have a lot of adverse experiences. And if you do have a lot of adverse experiences, then you need to take a time out and ask questions. God is within you. God will answer anything. It's not about the answers. It's all about the questions. That's why in the Bible, Jesus said, ask and you shall receive. Now, for those who are not Christians, don't get hung up on the Jesus quote, okay? Believe it or not, Jesus was a mystic. And on a spiritual level, he was trying to teach people how to understand God and how to live in God's spirit. That's why the verses are so simple. Do unto others as you to have them do unto you. Because basically what they're saying is, yes, it's coming back. As I mentioned earlier, it's coming back on you. So definitely treat others. And there are no strangers. Let's get that out the way, too. If everything that is, was, and ever will be is God, what is foreign? What is strange? What is alien? Nothing. Okay? And for anyone who's ever taken those DNA tests, you almost related to everybody on the planet. Everyone on the planet is a cousin if they're not your mother, father, sister, brother. Because we're all related. What was it? The archaeologist said that everyone comes from, the first human was Lucy, from Africa, of course. But, okay, so if everyone comes from the same being, we're all related. And the people in the U.S. ought to know, because most of the presidents, like, they're either related to each other or related to the monarchy in England. Like Obama and Cheney was related. Bush and Clinton was related. I think Franklin Pierce was Barbara Bush's, I don't know, great something. But as humans, we're all related. We all come from the same source. At the end of the day, everything comes from the same source. But we're all related. And we treat each other, of course, with fear. That's all I can say. We treat each other with fear. The fear of the unknown, the fear of the uncertainty, the fear of the ignorant, the fear of the programming. Think about it. We have preconceived notions, stereotypes of different kinds of people, and they are treated a certain way based on those fears. Look at how the United States treat African Americans, Native Americans, Mexican Americans, anybody who's not white. They have created a fear for. Build the wall. All black people will hurt you. All Mexican. Who was it? Build the wall. Mexicans rape women. What? Ridiculous. But there are people who will cling to that fear. And you can't change anyone who doesn't want to be changed. Just recognize who and what they are. And don't allow yourself to succumb. Now, as you elevate as a spirit, and this is where the rubber meets the road, okay? Because all of this that I'm providing is lip service, is information, knowledge, whatever. It doesn't mean anything if we don't apply it. We need to grow and benefit from the information that we receive. Now, I'm not saying that I know all. I'm sharing what is being shared with me. And it's being shared with me spiritually. Because I meditate on it. Because these are things that I want to work out. And that's why I said it's important as parents to understand that our job is to be stewards of these newly incarnated souls. They are not property. They are not possessions. And, of course, we project our fears onto them because most of us don't know any better. But those of us who do, let's do better. Because what we're doing is, fear is energy. And we're emitting all of this negative, harmful energy into the world. And just look out your window. We see it all the time. Oh, listen, and it's about to really get ugly. And this is supposed to be the season of giving, the season of Christ. You know what the holidays are like. Black Friday's coming up. People are going to be trampling each other, beating each other over what? Consumer goods? PlayStation? Are you serious? I remember when I was growing up, people were getting in line for Cabbage Patch dolls. And where are they now? Fear. That whole mentality is fear of scarcity. You don't want to miss out or lose out on the opportunity to buy something cheap. And people will start fighting in these stores. This is ridiculous. So don't sit there and say that you don't have a fear, because you do. Now, let's get over it. How do we get over these fears? First of all, you have to know where they come from. Where does your programming come from? Like I said, is this the environment in which you grew up? Now that you'll be aware of, because for most of us recall our experiences, good, bad, and indifferent, especially the ones that make us the person that we are today. And then if it's a fear that you can't figure out its foundation, chances are it's programming from a previous lifetime. And that's important because that programming from a previous lifetime may become part of the cycle of thoughts that we keep replaying in our mind. And that's the third component. We have to stop replaying thoughts of fear. Now, subconsciously, when you lock the door, that's fear. That's why you're not even aware of it. That's subconscious programming. Now, if you're walking down the street and you feel like somebody's walking behind you and they're walking faster, now, you might be on edge just because you don't want to turn around and, and see who it is, because then you don't want them to know that you're afraid. But you are. If you're walking down the street, it's dark. It don't even have to be late, because now with daylight savings time, it's dark at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock. You might be fearful. Is that fear justified? I mean, I've had my purse snatched a couple of times when I was growing up in Connecticut. Listen. And maybe I knew then and just wasn't aware of it, but that's not an event that I'm going to drag on with me. So I'm not clutching my purse every time I see somebody walking too close or invading my personal space. Or if I'm on the elevator alone with someone. Now, I'm not going to have that issue anyway, because I'm not afraid of black people being one of them. But what I'm saying is the fear is ridiculous. It is a perception. But this perception, now let's go a little further. This perception changes our DNA. Over time, this fear, and people want to know where disease come from. All disease come from the mind. All, A-L-L, disease come from the mind, stems from the mind. Because we are entertaining thoughts that are counterproductive to our health, to our spirit, to our being, to our essence. We are identifying with our physical reality, for lack of a better word, or physical world, and it's not who we are. So when we entertain thoughts of lack, loss, harm, damage, incompetence, uncertainty, ignorance, insecurity, judgment, anger, frustration, guilt, resentment, all of these energies, feelings distort our cellular makeup. And let's see, what is cancer? Distorted cells, unhealthy cells. So fear, although we don't make the connection, just like we don't make the connection when something bad happens to us, that it stems from some action that we initiated prior. Stems from thought, and depending on what thoughts you entertain, if you entertain thoughts of fear, then you will create that energy, you will emit that energy, you will embody that energy, and that energy over time modifies your genetic makeup. Oh my goodness, just today I was reading but I just had a thought. I was reading this magazine. It had a little ad, and in the ad, it was a harmonizing egg. I've never heard of it, and I haven't had a chance to do any research on it. But the little ad said there was only 1 in 6, I don't know if it said in the country or the world, I don't remember the details, but what the egg does, it's this huge thing that you get into your whole body. So you get into it, lay down. It looks like it's shaped like an egg, but it's the same concept as like those tanning beds. So you get in it, and from what I gather, now I don't know what kind of frequencies they play or frequencies, because I didn't go to the website, but the ad it stuck with me, so I know I'm going to check it out. But you get into this egg. I don't know what the duration, like I said, I only looked at the ad, but basically what they were advertising is that it harmonizes your cells back to a healthy using frequency. Now, is that possible? Absolutely. Now, is that particular ad legitimate? I have no idea. But the thought, the concept that it can be done is certainly not ridiculous, and it's certainly not out of the ordinary. And truthfully, to me, that's medicine. You want to talk about some real medicine? Forget all about those pills. Please, people, please. Okay, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. Because I know there are people that are on medication and they think they need to be on the medication, and it is not my place to tell you to not take them or stop taking them. However, let's talk about alternative forms of medicine. This little, conceptually, the egg thing turned me on because the first thing that came to mind is that now this is something that sounds like it could work because of the concept. Using frequency, vibration, because what? We're all just energy. Using frequency and vibration, which our body is attuned to anyway, depending on where it is in an environment, which is why we absorb. So it attunes, and it attunes the body to the frequency, but to a healthy frequency. So the cells are being encouraged to be healthy and divide, and when they divide as healthy cells. And of course there were testimonies, but it's an ad, so what is the ad going to say? This doesn't work. But so the testimonies of the ad, of course, they were saying, after the first treatment I felt this, after the second treatment, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought it was a fascinating concept. Okay. I don't know if we covered a lot of material. Hopefully that we did. The key takeaways, because I know we're running out of time. We're approaching the last 6 minutes. Oh, one last thing I wanted to touch on, and I'm probably going to get some pushback, but the second episode that I did was called Forgiveness. So earlier when I was talking about, karmic debt, things like that, and how the reason we lock our doors is because we don't know our past. Well, forgiveness, believe it or not, is really, it's a tool for you. Because as we talked about forgiveness, the person that you're forgiving, they don't even know that you're holding a grudge. And if they do, they don't even care. It's not affecting them, okay? It affects you. And also, once again, that energy that you're harboring that ill will towards another person or whatever, that also manipulates your cellular structure. Okay, that's right along with, because that anger, these are subsets of fear. Remember, there's love and fear. So anger, regret, hostility, bitterness, resentment, all of that, those are subcategories of fear. And yes, that is all that's the pot where disease comes from. Now, getting back to forgiveness, forgiveness is for your benefit because it's truly not even a necessary tool. And the reason I say that is, like I stated earlier, now this is on a deeper level. Now, and it might not be for you. So if you want to hang on to forgiveness as, because it does work. It's healing you. So there is something there. But I just want you to understand that there's nothing to forgive. Your experience is your experience. And whoever the players are in that experience doesn't matter, because 10 years later, if you haven't grown, you're going to have the same experience, but it's going to have different people in it. That's why you know someone who has had a relationship with the same kind of guy, but he's been in different bodies. Okay? So when you don't grow from your experiences, then you will repeat them. And if you were hurt, then you'll be hurt again, because you're not learning. But usually pain is one of the quickest ways for people to learn. Now, they also need to grow. So it's learn and grow. Okay, so just to recap, where does our fear come from? Our environment, pre-programming, and as a result of the pre-programming and experiences, our thoughts that we keep entertaining over and over again, which only continues to manifest the life that we don't want. How can we change that? First, we need to recognize what our fears are, where they stem from, and appreciate. Now, there's the challenge. Appreciate your experiences, good, bad, and indifferent. All experiences are for your benefit to grow. Even if they are painful, you have to see past or feel past the pain. Ask the question, how am I to grow from this experience? How does this experience benefit me? Why was it necessary to endure this pain in order to learn a lesson? Ask yourself the question. And don't be afraid to receive the answer. Listen, if you were a douchebag in a previous lifetime, don't you want to know sooner rather than later? I don't want to keep going through the same experiences. And remember, if we don't catch on quick in this lifetime, we're going to pick up where we left off in the next lifetime. Who wants to keep going through the same cycles? Let's get off the hamster wheel. Okay, there's only a minute and a half left. So let's close out by our healing prayer to all our friends, family, anyone who is open and receptive to being healed by God's bright, abundant, healing light. Open yourself up to receive it. God loves you. From the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, from the inside out, your soul, your spirit, and your body. Let us be healed by God's divine power and light. So be it, and so it is. All right, family and friends and individuated souls, fellow individuated souls, cousins, because there are no strangers, aliens or foreigners. Enjoy your holiday. Be safe. Let's love one another, appreciate one another. Let's not judge. Let go. Let God in. Create a clear channel. That's all that I have. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. I love you. And until next week, goodbye.